Chosen one, show 'em what you do best. Tables have turned and they never saw it coming. They wanted to bury you, but they didn't know you were a seed. Now their garden is full of regrets they can't uproot. My dear chosen ones, let me talk to you directly. If you could peek into the hidden corners of your enemies' lives right now, you wouldn't hear laughter. You'd hear silence so heavy it's choking them. You wouldn't see celebration. You'd see eyes swollen from tears they swore they'd never shed. The same walls that once echoed with their smug conversations now echo with whispers of shame. And isn't it funny? The louder they acted in public, the quieter they've become in private. The shift has already happened. Not something small, not something subtle. I'm talking about an earthquake in the foundation of their lives. And here's the raw truth. They never saw it coming. They never expected you to stand when they stacked the odds against you. They never imagined you'd rise without their approval, without their help, without their validation. That's why their pain feels so sharp. Their entire script depended on you staying small, staying quiet, staying broken. But chosen ones, you didn't fold. You didn't crumble. You refused to let their version of you be the final draft. And that's why their tears sting like acid. You might be wondering, why are they hurting now when I was the one who went through the storms? Here's the answer. Because the storms didn't sink you. They shaped you. And the same storms they thought would wash you away ended up washing them out. The irony is delicious, isn't it? They celebrated when you fell. They threw parties in their minds when you struggled. But now, every step you take forward is a slap across the face of their expectations. Chosen ones, think about this. They can't clap for you in public, but they can't stop watching you in secret. They scroll through your progress like addicts looking for a fix, pretending it doesn't sting, pretending it doesn't matter, pretending it doesn't hurt. But behind the mask, their pride is in shambles. Their envy is eating them alive. Their pillows are wet with tears they'll never admit to anyone. And here's the sweetest irony. The pain they feel now isn't pain you gave them. It's the pain they created for themselves. Chosen ones, before we dive even deeper, I need to pause for a moment. If this message is already hitting your spirit and giving you the fire to stand taller, don't just keep it to yourself. Show some love and support so we can keep bringing you this kind of raw, inspiring and life-changing content. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss another word that could shift your mindset and fuel your journey. Every time you engage, you're not just supporting us, you're helping push this movement forward so more people can rise with the same energy you're feeling right now. Let's be clear. This isn't just about payback or revenge. No, this is bigger than that. This is the power of being chosen. You see, when you're chosen, you carry a resilience that can't be taught, a fire that can't be put out, and a strength that doesn't need permission. That's why they hate it so much. Because your very existence, your very survival, your very refusal to break is proof that they never had the power they thought they did. And now, the stage they built to showcase your downfall is collapsing under their own feet. They laughed when you were bleeding. Now they bleed every time you laugh. That's the trade-off. That's the flip of the game. They wanted to see your funeral, but instead they're attending the burial of their own illusions. Chosen ones, hear me on this. Their tears are not proof of your weakness, they're proof of your unstoppable strength. Every drop that falls behind their closed doors is a confession that they lost control, a confession that you broke the cycle, a confession that you became everything they swore you couldn't be. And I know some of you might still be asking yourself, why does their downfall matter to me? Why not just ignore it? Here's why. Because it's motivation. Because when you see the same people who once mocked you now hiding in shame, it reminds you that nothing was wasted. Every sleepless night, every scar, every disappointment was part of the fuel that got you here. Their downfall isn't your obsession, it's your confirmation. Proof that you were never as weak as they painted you. Proof that they were never as powerful as they pretended to be. Chosen ones, let me give you an image. Picture a chessboard. For years they thought you were the pawn, predictable, disposable, easy to sacrifice. But while they were busy underestimating you, you became the queen. And now every move you make puts them in checkmate. That's why they're panicking. That's why they're unraveling. They don't know how to fight someone who refuses to play by their rules anymore. Here's another truth. They don't miss you. They miss the control they had over you. They miss the old version of you that explained yourself, doubted yourself, bent over backward to prove yourself. That version is gone. That version is dead. And in its place stands someone unbothered, unapologetic and unstoppable. Someone who doesn't explain, doesn't chase and doesn't fold. And for them that's unbearable. Because without control over you, they have to face the emptiness inside themselves. So listen to me, chosen ones. The next time you feel like you've wasted too much time, remind yourself, time is never wasted when it exposes the truth. Their downfall is the loudest evidence of your breakthrough. Their misery is the mirror reflecting your growth. Their secret tears are the soundtrack to your elevation. They wanted to see you fall. Instead, they're watching you fly. They wanted your silence. Instead, they're choking on the sound of your survival. They wanted to write your ending. Instead, you rewrote the whole story. And here's the part that makes this even sweeter. They can't stop it, they can't spin it, and they sure as hell can't erase it. Chosen ones, this is your moment. Don't hide, don't hold back. Show them what you do best. Show them what they never believed you could do. Not because you need their applause, you don't, but because every time you rise you prove that their script was nothing but fiction. And nothing hits harder than watching someone they counted out turn into the very proof that they were wrong all along. And listen, chosen one, yeah, I'm talking to you. Whether this is your first time here or you've been riding with us from the start, your energy is what keeps this fire burning. If you're ready to show the world what you do best, if you're truly done giving a fucks and ready to step into the power they never saw coming, prove it. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a 77 in the comments so I know you're locked in with this movement. Show some extra love with a super thanks if this message is already hitting home, because what's coming next isn't just talk, it's confirmation. And trust me, if you're a real chosen one, you're about to recognize every single sign. Ordinary people won't get it. Let's get started. Number 1. The mask they wore shattered the moment you rose. The mask they hid behind just shattered like glass. They spent years painting a perfect face for the crowd, but one crack was enough to prove it was all makeup on a lie. My dear chosen ones, lean in, because this is where it cuts the deepest for them. You see, the enemy didn't just lose you. They lost the entire disguise that made them look powerful in the first place. For the longest time, they played dress-up with the truth. They put on the mask of the noble one, the trustworthy one, the victim who never did wrong. And for a while, the world clapped for their little act. Why? Because you were the silent backdrop that made their performance believable. They needed your silence. They needed your self-doubt. They needed your pain to be the stage they stood on. As long as you stayed quiet, they could narrate the story their way, and people would believe them. You were written as the villain in their script, so that they could stand in the spotlight as the hero. But chosen ones, here's the twist that has them choking on their own lies. When you rose, when you stopped playing along, when you refused to stay broken, the mask they wore didn't just slip, it shattered into pieces too sharp to ever glue back together. Now they cry behind closed doors, not because you're shining, but because your shine exposed what they've been hiding all along. And once exposure happens, there's no rewind button. Once a mask falls, people never look at you the same way again. Trust doesn't regenerate like that. Admiration doesn't rebuild after the curtain has been ripped apart. That fake character they built for years crumbled in seconds because the truth, that's you, stood on its own legs. Let me ask you this, chosen ones. Have you ever wondered why someone who tried to destroy you seems so uncomfortable when you succeed? It's not just jealousy. It's not just envy. It's fear. Fear of exposure. Because your rise doesn't just elevate you, it spotlights the cracks in their mask. Every step you take forward is like holding up a mirror to their lies, and mirrors don't lie. They wanted you silent so their performance would sell, but now your voice has turned their applause into suspicion. That's what burns them. Because no matter how many times they try to spin it, no matter how many times they try to retell the story, people can see it now. The cracks are obvious, the illusion is gone. And once people see the truth, they don't unsee it. The sting of exposure cuts deeper than any revenge could ever reach. Chosen ones, think of it like this. They built their entire identity around smoke and mirrors. And you? You were the smoke they tried to suffocate with, the mirror they tried to cover up. But when you stood up, when you showed strength, when you refused to fold, you blew the smoke away. The mirror cleared. And suddenly the audience could see who was real and who was fake. That's why they're drowning in their own tears. Not because you're winning, but because your victory pulled the curtain back on their fraud. And let's be brutally honest here. The humiliation of exposure is heavier than any punishment you could have handed them. When someone's mask falls, they don't just lose a costume. They lose their credibility, their influence, their false sense of control. And once that's gone, what's left? Just the raw, ordinary version of them they worked so hard to hide. And that ordinariness feels like death to someone who built their life on pretending to be extraordinary. Chosen ones, I know the thought crosses your mind. But why does it matter if they lost their mask? Shouldn't I just move on? Here's why it matters. Because their tears are proof that truth always finds its way out. Their breakdown is evidence that no matter how polished a lie looks, it can't survive when reality shows up. And you, your resilience, your strength, your refusal to play their role, you are that reality. You became the living evidence they can't erase. They can't silence you anymore. They can't shove you back into the box they built. They can't convince the crowd that you're the villain when your life itself is the testimony of survival, growth, and strength. And that terrifies them. The higher you rise, the louder their mask cracks echo. Think about that. Every achievement of yours, every moment you walk in confidence, every time you refuse to break, it's another echo of their downfall. They don't just mourn losing you, chosen ones. They mourn losing the fake version of themselves they created at your expense. Without you being the backdrop, their performance is exposed as hollow. That's why their tears aren't cleansing. They're choking. They're drowning in the realization that the mask is gone for good. And what hurts even more is this: people don't forget. Once trust is broken, once admiration is shattered, you can't reapply the mask like makeup. It doesn't work that way. Their mask fell, and with it, the character they worked so hard to pretend to be is dead. So hear me clearly, chosen ones. This isn't just your win. It's their undoing. It's the collapse of an illusion they thought could last forever. And that collapse is the loudest applause you'll ever need. You didn't just survive. You didn't just rise. You ripped the mask off their face without lifting a finger. And the sound of that mask hitting the floor, that's the sound of victory. Number 2, the trap they built became the cage they can't escape. The trap they built became the cage they can't escape. When you dig a grave for someone else, don't be surprised when you end up buried in it yourself. My dear chosen ones, this one is going to sting for them the most. They thought they were architects of your downfall, carefully laying every brick of deception, sabotage, and betrayal. What they didn't realize was that every single move they plotted against you wasn't building your destruction. It was building their prison. And now the walls are closing in. Let's talk about it. They didn't just set up obstacles, they designed entire strategies with one purpose: to watch you fall. They whispered rumors like poison, expecting your reputation to wither. They manipulated situations to make you look weak, expecting people to laugh at you. They even celebrated in advance, convinced that the traps they set were too clever for you to escape. But here's the irony. Chosen ones, the very traps they crafted, are the ones they keep tripping into. And every stumble, every collapse, every exposed lie is another bar added to the cage they can't break free from. Think of it like this. Lies are hungry beasts. One lie is never enough. To keep the first one alive, they had to tell a second, then a third, then a fourth. Before long, the web they spun became so tangled that even they can't walk through it without choking. They're not crying because you caught them. No, that would almost be easier. They're crying because they caught themselves. They're stuck in a loop of their own making, and there's no escape hatch. The net they wove for your capture became the net that strangles their freedom. Chosen ones, their secret breakdowns aren't about you anymore. They're about the chains they forged with their own hands. They tried to chain your progress, but now every chain rattles on their own ankles. They tried to lock doors in your face, but now doors slam shut on them in places they once thought were secure. And here's the kicker. The harder they pull, the tighter those chains become. The weight of their schemes is crushing, and the tears they shed behind closed doors are proof they can feel every ounce of it. You may ask, but why can't they just stop? Why don't they just walk away from the mess they made? The answer is brutal, because once destruction is set in motion, it can't be undone. They can't rewrite the lies. They can't unsabotage the opportunities they stole. They can't erase the moments they cheered for your pain. The record is permanent, and every time you rise, that record plays louder in their own heads. And don't get it twisted. This isn't some fairy tale justice. This is consequence, raw and undeniable. Actions echo. Intentions leave fingerprints. What was meant to cage you has turned into their lifelong sentence. They thought they'd feel joy watching you break, but now the only breaking happening is inside their own spirit. Their world feels smaller, their options feel fewer, and their freedom feels like it's evaporating because everything they built against you has turned on them. Chosen ones, picture this: a person digging a tunnel to trap you, laughing as they go deeper and deeper, thinking they're clever. But the soil caves in, and now they're the one gasping for air, buried under the very dirt they shoveled. That's exactly where your enemies are right now, buried under their own energy, suffocating under the weight of their own schemes, crying into the silence because they can't claw their way out. And here's what makes it burn even worse for them. Every time you succeed, every time you smile, every time you move forward, those prison walls shrink tighter. They're forced to watch the very energy they poured into trying to break you fuel your growth instead. That's why their tears sting so much. Because it's not just failure, it's failure that multiplies every time you rise. So remember this, chosen ones, you don't need to retaliate. You don't need to plot. Their punishment is already playing out. The plans they designed for you became the bars that trap them. The strategies they whispered in secret became the nightmares that haunt them. And the tears they cry in silence, those are the screams of someone who realizes too late that they chained themselves. They thought your downfall would be their freedom. Instead, their freedom is the price they paid for plotting your downfall. That's the reality. And that's why you, chosen one, don't have to give a fax anymore. Because while they're locked inside the cage of their own creation, you're free, unbothered, unstoppable, and rising higher than they ever believed possible. Number 3. They prepared your ending, but walked into their own downfall. They showed up for your funeral, but ended up burying themselves. They dug your grave with confidence, but every shovel of dirt landed on their own reputation. My dear chosen ones, this is the part that slices them the deepest. Your enemies weren't just waiting for your failure, they were rehearsing it. In their minds, they had already attended your funeral 100 times over. They toasted to it in silence, smirked about it in whispers, and convinced themselves that your collapse was inevitable. To them, you were fragile glass waiting to shatter, a story written to end in tragedy. But here's the twist that has them choking on their own arrogance. The funeral they planned for you became the one they had to attend themselves. Not a funeral with caskets and roses, but a funeral of their ego, their pride, and their false power. They didn't just lose the war they declared on you, they lost the audience they bragged to, the credibility they boasted about, and the respect they pretended to own. Chosen ones, think about this. Why did they celebrate so confidently before you ever fell? Because in their minds, your pain was permanent. Your storms were supposed to drown you. Your wilderness was supposed to devour you. They thought silence would be your coffin, and their lies would be the nails that sealed it shut. But instead, every storm you endured turned you into steel. Every wilderness taught you survival. And every scar became proof that you can't be erased. They wanted your ending to confirm their lies, but your survival confirmed their weakness. That's what cuts the deepest. Because when someone announces your downfall before it happens, they put their own reputation on the line. They bragged about your collapse as if it was breaking news. They painted you as finished, done, irrelevant. And now, every day you rise, every step you take forward, every achievement you claim exposes them as liars who couldn't predict your story if their life depended on it. Chosen ones, you didn't just survive. You reversed the narrative. You took the weight they thought would crush you and used it as bricks to build an unshakable foundation. And now, while you stand taller, they're the ones collapsing under the humiliation of being proven wrong. Their tears don't come from your wins alone. They come from the shame of realizing that everything they invested, the gossip, the schemes, the sabotage, turned into a wasted effort that destroyed their credibility instead. Let's get brutally honest. They announced your funeral too early, and in doing so, they buried themselves. Their influence is dead. Their fake superiority is dead. The illusion they created about you is dead. And the only funeral flowers being laid down now are wreaths on their own reputations. They thought they were writing the final chapter of your story, but instead they closed the book on their own. And here's the irony that keeps them restless at night. They can't even grieve publicly. In front of the world, they act unbothered, indifferent, even dismissive. But behind closed doors, the silence is unbearable. They replay the scenes in their heads over and over, the arrogance, the lies, the bold predictions of your end. And now each replay is a dagger of shame, a reminder that they didn't just lose, they humiliated themselves in the process. Chosen ones, imagine the sting of preparing flowers for someone else's grave, only to have those same flowers handed back as a wreath for your own failure. That's exactly where they are now, mourning a loss they can never explain, crying tears they can never admit, suffocating on the realization that their downfall wasn't caused by your revenge, but by their own miscalculation. And let me make this clear, their tears are not about you. They're not crying because you thrived. They're crying because they bet against you and lost everything in the process. They bet their pride, their reputation, their mask of credibility, and the gamble failed. They didn't just misjudge you, they misjudged themselves. And now the audience they once fooled is seeing the truth in plain sight. So, chosen ones, hold your head high. The funeral they planned wasn't yours, it was theirs. The ashes they thought you'd turn to became the fire that burned their lies down. They thought you were finished, but instead you were just getting started. and nothing haunts them more than realizing that they showed up expecting your ending, only to find their own illusions buried in the ground. Number 4. Your name turned into a currency they'll never afford. Your name turned into gold they can't touch. They dragged your name through the mud, but all they did was polish it into a diamond they can't afford. My dear chosen ones, let's talk about something your enemies will never admit out loud: the value of your name. For years, they worked overtime trying to cheapen it. They whispered lies, spread rumors, mocked you, and twisted stories just to make people doubt you. They thought if they could smear your name enough, they'd strip it of worth, lock every door in your path, and make sure nobody would take you seriously again. But here's where their strategy backfired. Your name didn't break under pressure. It became untouchable currency, a form of value so powerful that no matter how hard they try, they'll never be able to spend it. Chosen ones, understand this. A reputation built on resilience can't be destroyed. A name built on survival becomes priceless. That's why now, when your name is spoken in certain rooms, it doesn't echo with doubt. It carries weight. It sparks respect. It stirs curiosity. The very syllables they tried to poison are now keys unlocking doors you didn't even have to knock on. And here's the dagger that stings them the most. Those same doors will stay bolted shut to them forever. Think about it. Every time your name comes up, it carries evidence of strength. People can't ignore it. They see the scars, the battles, the survival. That's credibility, that's value, and no rumor, no smear campaign, no fake story can erase that kind of authenticity. Meanwhile, their names, closed gates, locked tight. People are learning not to trust them, not to invest in them, not to attach themselves to their energy. Their reputations have become caution signs, while yours has turned into a passport. They thought they were burying you, but they were just engraving your name in stone. Chosen ones, the reason they cry behind closed doors is because they now know the truth. They can't borrow your light. They can't attach themselves to your victories. They can't counterfeit the currency of your name. They can mimic your moves, copy your style, even try to step into your spaces, but the doors that swing wide for you slam shut in their faces. Why? Because value can't be faked. People recognize authenticity, they recognize consistency, they recognize survival, and you proved all three. Here's the bitter truth they choke on. They wasted years trying to bury you when they should have been building themselves. While you were quietly putting in the work, they were plotting against you. While you were fighting battles in silence, they were gossiping. While you were growing, they were hoping you'd collapse. And now, the years they wasted have turned into the gap between your rise and their downfall. Chosen ones, let me put it in perspective. Imagine a password to a vault. That's your name now, a master key. The moment it's spoken in the right spaces, doors open, opportunities unfold, respect is given. They don't have that key, they'll never have it. Because your name wasn't handed to you. It was earned through fire, through trials, through endurance they never could have survived. And that's why no matter how much they imitate, it never sticks. Imitation always exposes itself as cheap. So the next time you hear your enemies downplaying your name, pretending not to care, pretending your success doesn't bother them, remember this: their denial is their disguise. Their silence is their scream. Every time your name is celebrated, it's another reminder that they lost the game they thought they controlled. They wasted energy trying to erase you, only to make you unforgettable. That's the irony. That's the punishment. Because now your name is not just valuable, it's untouchable. And nothing breaks them more than realizing they can't buy their way back into relevance with it. Chosen ones, never forget this. Your name is no longer just an identity, it's currency, it's credibility, it's proof. It's the passcode to doors they'll never step through, and every time you rise, every time your name circulates with respect, it's another receipt of their failure. They didn't just lose control of your story, they lost access to a future that only responds to your name. Number 5. They finally see the energy they drained was never theirs. The power they claimed was borrowed from you. They thought they were the engine, but now the car has stalled because the battery was always you. Chosen ones, let me tell you something that cuts deeper than any insult you've ever heard. The very people who mocked you, belittled you, and drained you were surviving off the very energy they pretended to despise. That's the revelation that's punching them in the gut right now. Behind their arrogance, behind their fake independence, they know the truth. You were the source of their power all along. Think about it. Your kindness, they lived off it. Your creativity, they stole from it. Your resilience, they drew strength from it even as they tried to break it. They insulted you, called you weak, ordinary, disposable, but all the while they were feeding off the so-called weakness they couldn't live without. That's the twisted irony. They wanted you to believe you had nothing, when in reality, everything they paraded around came from you. But here's where the pain gets raw for them. You cut the cord. You finally stopped pouring into people who only knew how to take. And now, they're starving. Not just emotionally, not just mentally, but at the core of who they are. Without your energy fueling their world, everything feels heavy, dry, and painfully empty. The battery has been removed, and the machine they called life refuses to run. They built their throne out of your bricks, but now that you've stopped building, they're left sitting on dust. Chosen ones, you need to recognize the kind of power you carried. They can't replace it. They've tried. They've looked for new faces, new victims, new distractions. But nothing and no one sustains them the way you did. Why? Because your presence wasn't just company, it was oxygen. You gave without asking for much back, and that made you their lifeline. Without you, their world collapses in on itself. Now here's the part that makes them cry in secret. It's withdrawal. Like addicts stripped of their drug, they're shaking without the fix your energy used to provide. They don't miss you as a person. They miss the access. They miss how easy it was to lean on you, to drain you, to recharge off you without ever acknowledging your worth. And now that the well is sealed, the thirst is killing them slowly. Chosen ones, ask yourself this. Why were they so comfortable draining you but so quick to call you weak? Because the truth was too uncomfortable to admit. If they acknowledged that you were the source, that you were the reason they stayed afloat, that you were the quiet engine behind their existence, then they'd have to admit they were never as strong as they pretended. Their fake independence is cracking now because the truth is undeniable. They needed you more than you ever needed them. And here's the cruel part for them. Once a source cuts off, you can't demand it back. You can't force water to flow from a well that's sealed. You can't make the sun shine on your terms. They thought you'd always be there to refill them, that you'd always cave in, always bend, always provide. But you didn't, and that realization is like poison in their veins. Every day without your energy feels like punishment, but it's not punishment, it's consequence. They thought you were disposable, but without you, they're the ones who got thrown out by life. Chosen ones, let this be your reminder. Your energy, your vision, your strength, it was never ordinary. It was rare, it was irreplaceable, it was gold disguised as dust. They didn't recognize it when they had it, but they feel the loss of it now like a hammer to the chest. And make no mistake, their tears aren't noble. They're not mourning because they miss you. They're mourning because they miss the access, the power, the free lifeline you cut off forever. So hold your head high, because their collapse is the loudest evidence that you were never powerless. You were the current running through their system. You were the light in their darkness. And now that you've shown them what you do best, walking away, rising up, and refusing to give a fuck, they're left in the ruins of their own dependence. That's not just a loss for them. That's the kind of defeat they'll never recover from. Number 6. The applause they stole echoes empty without your presence. Their stolen applause has turned into a dead echo. They fed off your shine like thieves in the night, but without you, the spotlight dimmed and left them in the dark. My dear chosen ones, this one is going to sting them the most, because applause is like oxygen to people who live for performance. And for years, your enemies survived off applause that was never meant for them. They strutted around in borrowed shoes, showing off borrowed light, taking bows for brilliance that wasn't theirs. And for a while, the crowd clapped. For a while, the lies were convincing. People admired, people believed. But here's the cruel truth they can't run from. Applause built on theft doesn't last. Borrowed light always fades. Stolen glory always turns into silence. Chosen ones, think about it. Have you noticed how quiet the rooms get without you in them? That's not an accident. You were the substance that made their performance believable. You were the depth in their shallow act. Without you, it's like a song missing its rhythm, just noise, no soul. And now, the rooms they once thrived in echo with emptiness. The claps they once bragged about sound hollow because people are finally seeing the truth. They thought the applause was theirs, but it was only your echo bouncing off the walls. The humiliation cuts them deep, because they know the recognition they once enjoyed was never real. It was a reflection of your resilience, your effort, your brilliance. And the day you stopped giving them access to your light, their shine dimmed into nothingness. Now they're scrambling, trying to recreate what you gave them for free. They mimic your energy. They copy your ideas. They attempt to steal your tone, your moves, your strength. But here's the punchline: imitation always exposes itself. You can wear another person's clothes, but you can't wear their essence, and essence is what they lost. Chosen ones, let me put it plain. They were actors on a stage where you were the playwright, the director, and the spark. Without you, the curtains fall flat, the lights feel too bright, and the performance has no weight. And now the echo of what once was is haunting them. They clap for themselves in private, but even they know the sound is empty. You might wonder, but why does it bother them so much now? Because applause was the only proof they ever had. They never had the substance. They never had the grit. They never had the real thing. And once the applause dies down, all that's left is exposure. Exposure that without you, they are ordinary. Without you, their masks don't shine. Without you, they can't fill a room. The silence after fake applause is the loudest sound of all. And that's what they're living in now. Silence. Behind closed doors, they replay the moments they stole your recognition, and it doesn't taste sweet anymore. It tastes bitter, because now they know everyone can see it. People are beginning to connect the dots. People are realizing the shine wasn't theirs. The admiration they paraded was borrowed. And once people recognize theft, they don't clap anymore, they question, and that questioning burns them alive. Chosen ones, let this be your motivation. Let their silence fuel you. Because the truth is, you were always the performance. You were always the show. You were always the reason the claps felt heavy. Without you, there's no standing ovation, just an echo fading into nothing. They thought they had stolen greatness, but what they stole was only your reflection, and reflections don't last when the source of light walks away. That's why their tears sting so much now. It's not just the loss of attention, it's the exposure of reality. They built a reputation on theft, and reputations built on theft collapse under their own weight. They know they can't rebuild what was never theirs. They can't fake brilliance forever. And they can't steal applause when the audience has woken up. So, chosen ones, stand tall. Because every clap you receive now carries weight. Every cheer is real. And the louder your victory gets, the hollower their echo becomes. The spotlight they stole has returned to its rightful place, and it no longer belongs to them. They didn't see this coming, but you did. Because the truth always comes back. And when it does, it exposes the thieves for who they really are: ordinary. Number 7. Their so-called victory has soured into poison they can't swallow. Their victory turned sour before they could swallow it. They toasted to your downfall like it was champagne, but now the bottle reeks like vinegar every time they remember it. Chosen ones, let's break this down. At first, they thought they won. They sat back smug, clinking their imaginary glasses together, tasting what they thought was the sweetest victory of their lives. They bragged in whispers, they laughed in the shadows. They congratulated themselves as if your downfall was some kind of grand accomplishment. For a moment it gave them a rush, a high, a false sense of power. But here's the brutal truth. They weren't celebrating strength, they were celebrating cruelty, and cruelty never ages well. Victory built on someone else's suffering always rots with time. What they thought was wine turned rancid in their mouths, and now every sip of that memory makes them gag. That's the punishment. That's the aftertaste. What once gave them a thrill now lingers like poison in their veins. Ask yourself this, chosen ones. What did they really win? Did they gain honor, respect, legacy, number? All they proved was how far they were willing to sink to watch another human break. That's not victory. That's evidence of weakness. That's evidence of desperation. That's evidence of who they truly are when no one's watching. And now, every time your name rises, every time your strength shows, every time you keep moving forward, their little celebration becomes a haunting memory they can't wash away. They laughed at your wounds, but now those laughs echo like screams inside their own heads. This is what's eating them alive. Their supposed triumph isn't something they can proudly retell. It's something they avoid thinking about because shame wraps itself around it like chains. Instead of pride, they feel exposure. Instead of joy, they feel regret. What they once held up as proof of superiority has turned into undeniable evidence of their cruelty. And once cruelty is exposed, it never smells like power again. It smells like decay. Chosen ones, let me tell you why this hits them so hard. Because time has a way of testing everything. Real victories grow sweeter with age, but fake ones spoil. They become bitter reminders of how empty they really are. They can't undo it. They can't rewind the clock. They can't rewrite the script. The day they thought they defeated you is now the day that haunts them the most. You might be asking, but what if the world never finds out what they did to me? Let me tell you this, the world doesn't have to, because they know, and their conscience is louder than any applause they once received. They can't silence it, they can't drown it, and that's the part that punishes them day and night. Think of it like spoiled food. At first it looked fine. At first it smelled sweet, but one bite in, the rot reveals itself. That's exactly what happened to their so-called victory. It seemed satisfying in the moment, but now it's rotting inside their memory, and no matter how much they try to mask it, the stench follows them. Every time you rise, that smell gets stronger. Every time you shine, the bitterness burns deeper. Chosen ones, let this motivate you. Their laughter at your pain wasn't proof of your weakness, it was proof of their emptiness. And the reason they're breaking down in private now is because emptiness always catches up. You survived what was meant to bury you, but they can't survive the guilt of celebrating it. That's why their victory tastes rotten. That's why their smiles feel hollow. That's why their pillows are soaked in silence. They thought they had the final word, but look around. You're still here, stronger, louder, sharper, and them? They're gagging on the aftertaste of their own cruelty. What they thought would define their greatness now defines their downfall. And that bitterness, chosen ones, is something they'll carry for the rest of their lives. Number 8. Your very existence exposes the lies they tried to cement. You became the walking evidence they can't erase. They thought silence would bury you, but survival turned you into the loudest truth they can't outrun. Chosen ones, let's get real for a second. Out of everything you've overcome, this one cuts them the deepest. The fact that you exist, right here, right now, is proof they can't get rid of. You became the one thing they never prepared for, living, breathing evidence that exposes their lies without you having to say a single word. And that terrifies them more than anything. Think about it. They built their entire story about you with confidence, with arrogance, like architects stacking bricks of lies. They twisted facts, spread rumors, and painted you as someone broken, someone finished, someone who would never rise again. They thought if they shouted their narrative long enough, people would forget who you really are. But here's the dagger that's slicing through their pride. You're still here, and not just here. You're stronger, you're thriving, you're living proof that their story never held weight in the first place. My dear chosen ones, your survival is the contradiction they can't erase. Every step you take forward crushes another piece of the image they worked so hard to build against you. Every achievement, every ounce of progress, every breath you take in confidence is a direct slap across the face of their lies. And the beauty, you don't even need to argue. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't even need to clap back. Your very existence does all the talking. Your life became the courtroom, and the verdict is already in. They lied, and you're the evidence. You became their unfinished sentence, the truth they can't rewrite, and the proof they can't silence. That's why their tears sting so badly, because this isn't the kind of defeat you can explain away. It's permanent. Exposure isn't always about shouting from rooftops or dragging secrets into the light. It's about standing tall while the truth shines on its own. And that's what you've become. A truth they can't outrun, a reality they can't erase, an existence that screams louder than all their excuses combined. Chosen ones, let's flip this around for a second. Have you noticed how quiet they've gotten? How the ones who used to talk the loudest about you suddenly avoid mentioning your name? That silence is heavy. That silence is proof. Because the more you thrive, the smaller their words sound. The more you rise, the weaker their story becomes. Their lies are collapsing under the weight of your survival. And what really eats at them is this: people are starting to notice. Even those who once doubted you can't deny the undeniable anymore. They see the gap between what was said about you and who you actually are. They see the contradiction, and once people see that gap, they start asking questions. And those questions, they don't lead back to you. They lead straight back to your enemies. Straight back to the ones who swore you'd never make it. Straight back to the ones who built their fake image by trying to bury yours. That's the kind of exposure that keeps them up at night. And here's what really burns them, chosen ones. Once people see the truth, they never look at the mask the same way again. No matter how many times your enemies try to spin it, no matter how hard they try to rewrite the past, the evidence keeps showing up. They can't out-talk proof. They can't outmaneuver survival. They can't erase a living, breathing contradiction standing right in front of them. So don't miss this. Your rise is more than success. It's their haunting. It's the shadow they can't run from. Every win of yours is a reminder of their failure. Every breath you take in strength is a confession they never wanted to give. And every time your name is mentioned in rooms they thought you'd never enter, it's a knife twisting in the narrative they built. The most dangerous evidence isn't written. It walks, breathes, and thrives. That's you. And that, chosen ones, is why their tears aren't about you. They're about the collapse of the illusion they thought would last forever. They cry because the mask is gone. They cry because the lies don't hold anymore. They cry because no punishment you could hand them will ever compare to the torment of knowing that you are their biggest exposure. A silent, undeniable, permanent reminder that they failed to erase you. And that truth? It will follow them for the rest of their lives. Number 9. They never missed you, only the control they lost forever. They never missed you, they only missed their leash. They thought they lost a person, but what they really lost was the remote control they used to run your life. Chosen ones, let me tell you a brutal truth. Your enemies don't miss you. They miss the control, and that's the piece they'll never say out loud, but it's the very reason their pillows are soaked in secret tears. When you cut the strings, when you stopped reacting, when you stopped bending, something inside them broke. Not because of who you are, but because without your compliance, they realized how small they really are. You see, control was their drug. They got high off your explanations, your defenses, your need to prove yourself. Every time you justified your choices, they felt like kings and queens pulling your strings. Every time you second-guessed yourself, they felt validated. Every time you folded to keep the peace, they felt powerful. It wasn't love, it wasn't loyalty, it wasn't even respect. It was pure addiction to control. And chosen ones, nothing hurts an addict more than losing their supply. Now you've cut them off cold. No responses, no reactions, no explanations. You simply move forward, unbothered, unapologetic, unstoppable. And here's what really kills them. Your silence isn't weakness anymore. It's power. You're no longer silent because you're broken. You're silent because you don't give a fuck. And to someone addicted to manipulating your every move, that silence feels like suffocation. They don't know how to breathe without your attention feeding them. Think about it. For years, they mistook control for closeness. They thought domination was connection. They thought manipulation was intimacy. But once the control disappeared, once the leash snapped, they realized there was nothing between you but empty games, no real bond, no real respect, just power plays. And now that those games are over, the emptiness they feel is unbearable. That's why they cry when no one's watching. Not because they love you, chosen ones, not because they value you, but because without control they have to face themselves. And that's the one battle they can't win. Your freedom isn't their heartbreak. It's their detox, and withdrawal hurts like hell. And don't get it twisted. They'll never admit this to anyone. Out in public, they'll act unbothered. They'll pretend they've moved on. They'll even try to spin stories like they're the ones who cut you off. But behind closed doors, the truth is louder than their lies. They're grieving the loss of control the way an addict grieves the loss of their fix. Shaking, restless, angry, bitter. Chosen ones, maybe you've caught yourself wondering, do they actually miss me? Do they regret what they did? And here's the hard but liberating answer. No, they don't miss you. They miss the leash. They miss the version of you that explained every choice, that apologized for existing, that shrank so they could feel bigger. But that version is gone forever. And the new version of you, the unshakable, unapologetic you, is something they can't control, can't bend, can't break. That's why their tears hit harder now than yours ever did then, because they finally see the truth. They never actually had you. They only had the illusion of dominance. They had strings in their hands, but those strings were never tied to your destiny. And once the illusion shattered, so did their sense of importance. Without you to manipulate, they're just ordinary, powerless, small. Chosen ones, hear me clearly. Their breakdown is your breakthrough. Their grief is your confirmation. Because when manipulators lose control, they don't just lose a game, they lose their identity. And that collapse is something no amount of tears can rebuild. They'll cry for the leash, but they'll never get it back. You've outgrown the chains, you've walked out of the cage, and they're stuck replaying the past while you live unbothered in the present. They thought you'd come crawling back for the leash, but instead you built wings. That's the power of being chosen. You don't just survive control, you destroy the illusion that it ever defined you. And now their silent tears will follow them like shadows, reminding them every day that once the leash was gone, so were they. And so, chosen ones, here's where it all lands. Every tear they shed in silence, every mask that cracked, every illusion that collapsed, none of it was an accident. It was proof. Proof that your rise can't be stopped. Proof that when you stop giving a fuck about their opinions, their control, their games, you win without even playing. They never saw this version of you coming, and that's exactly what makes it unstoppable. Now, if this message lit a fire in you, don't just sit with it, act on it. Smash that like button to push this further. Hit subscribe so you never miss the next drop of this energy. And let me know you're locked in by dropping 77 in the comments. It's the stamp of a true chosen one who knows exactly what's happening in their life right now. Share this with someone who needs the reminder that silence isn't weakness, it's power. Because the more we spread this, the louder the truth gets and the harder the enemy falls.